video conferencing, web conferencing, phone conferencing, incredibly popular now in the way that we're conducting business. So I'm going to talk about some of the solutions that are out there, some of the, the good and bad with them, and just basically I'm hoping to give you some information. So the first item I'm going to talk about is Webex. Webex is the Cisco solution that is actually very feature-rich and built with security in mind. There's several variations of the platform, and it was built with a large enterprise in its mind as the target audience. Most of the Webex offerings max out at about 1,000 participants. Webex offers you the ability to centralize the administration of users, which is something that technical departments love. I know my team absolutely loves that fact. Now, the challenge with Webex, there's a high learning curve, but YouTube has videos on it that has eased the pain of that process and made it more palatable of an experience. And one of the great hidden features that Webex has is that as the presenter, I can assign the role of note taker to someone during the presentation. And when they take the notes, it will pop up on my screen and be visible to me during my presentation, which is something that's just absolutely phenomenal. The next item I want to talk about is GoToMeeting and GoToWebinar. Now, for those who don't know, these two platforms are owned by Citrix Systems, and they're part of a spun-off company called LogMeIn. The platform's extremely reliable, and it's evident by us using it right now. It's designed for business use, and because of that, it requires a certain level of hardware. The product has great integration with other software platforms, and the presenter has full control over the participants and can mute and unmute participants at will. It's great for controlling the circumstance and situation. It also allows for you to house large meetings without issue, and it has a really in-depth control panel that's very feature-rich. Very strong solution, in my opinion. The next product I want to talk about is Microsoft Skype / Microsoft Teams. So here's the interesting thing. This product probably has the least amount of traction right now on the consumer side, but this is likely to be the product that businesses use exclusively for the foreseeable future. I say that because right now there are 600 million subscribers, yet this is not what people think about in terms of residential use for web conferencing. It's compatible with a multitude of solutions and devices. There are even physical phones that are made to house the software. It can actually take the place of your conventional phone system in most businesses. And it's probably the most secure of the platforms that I'm going to mention today. The biggest downside with the Skype and Teams platform, it doesn't have an official customer support team. So you can't just call them and say, hey, this isn't working. That's not quite how the Microsoft model works for this particular platform. And the last product I'm going to talk about in terms of web conferencing platforms is a product called Zoom. Now, Zoom, since I'm assuming none of you have ever heard of it, I'll just go over it briefly. Zoom is hands down the easiest of the four platforms to use. The meeting creation is as simplistic as it can get, and the pricing model is really attractive. One of the biggest challenges that Zoom has, and if you're reading what's going on in the news, there's a lot of people bashing on Zoom, and its stock price is not indicative of that in any way, shape, or form. But consider this. In a blink of the eye, Zoom went from 10 million subscribers to 200 million, which is insane when you quantify it. But it's one of the main reasons the platform has become a target for many attackers. And just to put it in perspective for you, companies like Google, they've banned the use of Zoom on within their organization, and not just within the organization. If you're using corporate-owned equipment at home, they've disallowed that as well. The Department of Defense, They've done the same thing. I know pharmaceutical companies, public and private, that have done the same thing. And one of the things that I'm going to just run through, because I know people are using this product casually on the residential side. I mean, I've done it myself. There's certain things to do to put yourself in a better position to succeed in terms of Zoom. And I'll just run through some of these items really quick. And I want to make sure I give enough time to the questions, because I see the questions are popping up rapidly. You want to make sure you're running the latest version of the application. You want to create a new password for every Zoom meeting. So let's say you have a recurring happy hour with your friends. Even though it's just a happy hour and it's casual discussion taking place, you don't want to be in a situation where someone Zoom bombs your meeting. So just create a new password for every Zoom meeting. If you're using Zoom for business purposes, create a waiting room so that all attendees have to hit the waiting room prior to starting the meeting, and then lock the meeting once you start the meeting. You also want to disable the ability of participants to record your meeting. You do not want them to have that ability. One of the big things that happened with Zoom is some of their recorded meetings were actually hacked. You don't want to be on that list of people who had that happen to you. Also, make sure you secure your Zoom account. They had 500,000 accounts compromised recently. Please make sure, whether you're on the list or not on the list, it may be a worthwhile effort to just change your password on your Zoom account.